Hi. I thought I'd say hi to a few newcomers I thought I saw, but then I will turn my camera back because I'm going to eat my dinner in a minute. Is this anybody's first Sangha?
Second. But I'm new.
Second.
I met you last week, I think.
Yeah, we're in the same group. Sorry, the cat noise. Excuse me. Lovely. Okay, well, hello. I'm going to eat my dinner, which is a bit naughty, but I'll be turning my camera off.
Hello, people.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Phil.
Hello.
Hiya.
Oh, what have I done? Oh, that's better. Sorry. I'm not very good at this technical stuff. Oh, lovely to see you all. Hello. Oh, people are coming in thick and fast now. Oh, the lovely Sudha Chandika. Hello. Tonight's on the trot, Sudha Chandika. Woohoo.
Wow, hi, Sudha Chandika. It's Elisa. Nice to see you. Hi. I was just saying I'm being a bit naughty and I'm going to eat my dinner in a minute, so I'll turn my camera off. But hello, hi.
Hello.
I'm trying to find you. I've only got 4 people on screen.
It's Elisa. We met on retreat.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I found you.
Hello, everybody. I can only see one person.
Hi,
Sudha
Joanne.
Chandika. Hello. I'm on my phone because I'm going to be outside while I'm listening. I've not been
Why
outside
are you going to be
today
outside?
because I've been stuck in a windowless room all day.
All right, good for you.
And I just love some outdoor time and some air, fresh air. And I've just got in late, had some food. I'm going to listen while I'm in the park and hope an axe murderer doesn't get me.
Well, at least we'll know if he is because it's been live streamed, so we'll come and rescue him.
Great stuff. I'm just trying to find a power pack for my phone in case my battery dies as well. Anyway, I shall look forward to joining and listening with you. I shall shut myself up. See you in a bit.
See you later, Joanne. Take care, pet.
See ya, bye.
Hi, Shanta Siddhi. Oh, hi. Oh. There's not many of us on Zoom tonight, is there? What time is it? There was a lot last week, wasn't there? There was about 40 people last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind. We can watch the people coming into the Great Hall now.
It's because it's the second week of the new year. Everybody's given up their New Year's resolutions already.
Yeah. Yes. I gave them up on the 2nd of January. Especially the bit about trying to eat less sugar. When my the cake fairy put half a sponge, homemade sponge cake through my window. Yeah. I'm cooking my healthy vegetable tea, all my nice little vegetables, doing a stir fry, and half a cake comes up through the window. Hilarious. There's the cake fairy. Oh, look. Hello, people. Sorry, Matty, Alex, Manishri, Dennis, Joy, there's Dania. Hello, Jane, Bernadette. Oh gosh, there's lots of people coming in now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hello, lovelies.
Hello.
Hello.
Are you going on the retreat at the weekend, Joy?
I'm not, sadly.
Oh, never
I have no
mind.
more leave available. You go.
Yeah.
Oh, fab.
The joys of
Enjoy.
retired life.
Oh, hush now. Oh, good on you. Yeah. I hope it's marvellous. I'm sure it will be.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. Yeah, we'll have a good time. Oh, there's Izzy there as well. Hi, Izzy. Oh. See, you're looking at all the little boxes and you miss people.
Yeah.
I'm going on retreat, Sarah. I'll see you there.
Yay.
Oh, lovely. Yay.
I'm going to be on retreat too, so I'll see you there as well.
Oh,
How
great.
exciting.
Yay.
Good job. Well, yeah.
Nearly ready to go out. I'll shut myself up again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Right. Oh. The Great Hall has disappeared off my screen for some reason. Oh, there it is. It's on page 2. Oh, well.
Well, yes.
Yeah. I don't know whether we're both in.
Sarah, if you double tap it and pin it, it'll stay there.
What?
Top tips.
That's
Double
well,
tap
it works
what?
on an iPad like that.
Oh,
Oh, no, I'm on a laptop.
Good.
You might have to right click it then.
Right click.
Does it come up with the option for?
Nah. Doesn't matter. I'll figure it out.
You'll either say chat or remove pin.
What am I doing? Let's go to that. Oh, I've got a raised hand. I've got one of those.
Oh, a party.
I didn't know how that got there.
In a minute, your background will turn to some tropical paradise. That's usually the option.
Oh, it's gone again.
I sound like I'm in a zoo. Every time I turn the mic on, the cats start making some sort of unpleasant noise.
Yeah. Oh, no. Poor kitties. Oh, there's Shan there as well, sitting there quietly.
Oh.
Hello. Oh, I'm Nigel. I'm Bev.
I cannot see on a tiny screen, but hello, all lovely people from the newcomers course.
Okay, so how wonderful to have so many people in the hall. It's really fantastic to see everybody and so many on Zoom as well. Welcome to Sangha Night, and especially welcome if it's your first night here. A huge welcome to you. I hope you have a really lovely time, and especially and also on Zoom if it's your first time, welcome. So a couple of weeks ago, I'll tell you actually first about the retreat. The Mitra retreat that's happening on Friday, there are still a few spaces. So if anybody has suddenly unexpectedly found a few days that they didn't know they had, it's from Friday to Wednesday. And if you are thinking that you would like to go, then make sure you let the office know by Thursday morning. So last week, we started on a new theme, light in the dark. When things are difficult, when life lets us down, how can the Dharma help us in those dark moments, help us through those difficult times? And that's what our theme is about. And Subhadra Mati is going to talk tonight addressing that theme. So yes, here we have Subhadra Mati. I'm just going to say a little bit about her. She has been in the LBC for 14 years, many years before there. When were you ordained?
1995.
1995, so been ordained a very long time. and has been in the LBC, the London Buddhist Centre, for 14 years, and has gone forth from that relationship with the London Buddhist Centre. She's left the London Buddhist Centre, and all she has in the world is a rucksack and a suitcase. And she's traveling to different Buddhist centres, teaching, meeting people, getting to know all the centres around the UK and probably the world as well by the time she's finished. And we are her first stop. So, central to Subhadra Mati's life is ordaining women. That is at the centre of her life, and that's what you're continuing to do. And actually, Subhadra Mati has been here at an ordination of Daya who Subhadra Mati ordained a few years ago, and maybe Daya is up there on Zoom. So I thought there were a few areas. I just want to say a little bit about Subhadra Mati. And there are three kind of aspects I thought of to what I kind of picked up from being with Subhadra Mati. She was on my ordination retreat for a short time, so I knew her from there, and also from the LBC, and also from coming here when she came to the last visit she's had. And there's something about her energy, and the word I kind of thought of was determination to be of use. She arrived on Saturday, and by Saturday evening, she'd already attended 2 events. That was Saturday afternoon to Saturday when she went to bed. She'd done 2 events. This energy, this virya in pursuit of the good. She has this incredible ability to really hear your experience and honor it, really honor it and hear it in a way that's really down to earth, really kind, but lifts you up to something better. And we had an experience on Sunday of sitting in front of her, sitting here where you are, listening to her speak, just soaking up all her years of practice and experience and stories about Banting. Had a really positive effect. And then tonight I asked Subhadra Mati what her name means. And it was just so interesting. Very beautiful devotion. Dharmically radiant determination. Very auspicious intelligence. So that is Subhadra Mati.
Thank you very, very much, Sangha Gita. Thank you. And thank you everyone for having me, actually. Very, very nice to be spending just under a week at the Sheffield Buddhist Centre. I really enjoyed myself so far. And really, really pleased to be asked to speak as part of this series of bringing light into darkness. I think it's very, very simple metaphor that, but actually even that title quite sort of intrigued me, or something I've thought about a lot. Just that metaphor of light, like no matter how long somewhere's been dark, one candle can light it up. It doesn't. How long it's been dark becomes irrelevant when it's been lit up. And of course, we talk about the Buddha being enlightened. I was thinking, actually, we all have dark times in our lives, but actually from the point of view of the Buddha, we're all in the dark, actually, and the Buddha's the Buddha's enlightenment illuminates that darkness. Last week, the aspect was on the heroic aspect, and this week we're going to be talking about the wisdom aspect. And I wanted to start with an image. It's a little story, really, and it's a story of Bhante Sangharachita, our teacher, for those of us who are ordained on training for ordination. And he was talking about one of his teachers, his first meeting with one of his teachers, Dojong Rinpoche, one of his great Tibetan teachers, this great Rinpoche. And he said what struck him immediately on meeting Dojong Rinpoche was his stillness. And he said it wasn't just bodily stillness, he said he had the impression that the winds that usually agitate the surface of our consciousness, in the case of Dojong Rinpoche, had ceased to blow. So there was this incredible stillness emanating from him. And yeah, I find that very, very striking, that kind of stillness, that kind of peace. And the winds that agitate the surface of consciousness. So that immediately that gives you a metaphor of consciousness, of mind being something like a lake, doesn't it? Being something like a lake, being something like a huge body of water. And you could say that what we do, sort of unenlightened, is we identify with the surface of the lake. We identify with the waves. We identify with these sort of agitated ripples on the surface. What Dojong Rinpoche seemed to have managed to do was be identifying with the much deeper part of the lake. And then this image of then the winds agitating the surface. So, well, what are these winds that agitate the surface? I thought I might ask you, what are the winds? Does anybody know that there's a sort of classic description of these winds that some of you might know? Does anybody want to have a go at saying what the winds are that agitate the surface? Yeah? You don't know? Oh, you do know? Gain and loss? Oh, yes, sorry, I thought you said I don't know. So gain and loss, gain and loss, yeah. So the winds of gain and loss, very good. Yeah. Pain and pleasure. Praise and blame. Fame and infamy, yeah. So they're the classic worldly winds, yeah. And they do, don't they? They agitate the surface of our consciousness. So I'll just say them again: pleasure and pain, loss and gain, infamy and fame, praise and blame. Yeah. So all the time they're agitating us. We're sort of usually ricocheting from one to the other all the time, aren't we? So again, back to this image of this, imagine meeting this person, and you just sense from them that they're no longer agitated in that way. You can just sense the complete stillness. And that was the complete stillness of Dojong Rinpoche. So then, to my delight, I discovered later on that Dojong Rinpoche had written this prayer of aspiration for himself. It's quite a long prayer. There's about 25 verses. And I thought I'd just read you a few. I won't have time to read the whole 25. So I don't know how often he would have recited this, but I imagine this, he was living by this, yeah. This man who was completely still in the depths of his being. So this is what he wrote. It's called the Heart Nectar of the Saints. So he wrote, the fleeting human life like a dream. If it's happy, that's all right. If it's unhappy, that's all right. Without concern for happiness or sorrow, may I constantly practice the supreme teaching. This entourage, like a flock of birds in a tree. If it's assembled, that's all right. If it's scattered, that's all right. Without letting others lead me by the nose, may I constantly practice the supreme teaching. These relationships, like gatherings on a market day, if they're loving, that's all right. If they're spiteful, that's all right. Cutting the ties of passionate attachment from deep within the heart, may I constantly practice the supreme teaching. This material wealth, like what's found in a dream, if it's acquired, that's all right. If it's not, that's all right.
without deceiving others by flattery and assent. May I constantly practice the supreme teaching. This yogi's experience, like a stream in a spring. If it expands, that's all right. If it recedes, that's all right. Without chasing rainbows like a child, may I constantly practice the supreme teaching. So I thought that was wonderful. There's many more verses in that flavor. But I think you can see that these verses are expressions of, if I'm happy, that's all right. If I'm not happy, that's all right. Yeah. If my friends are nice to me, that's all right. If they're horrible to me, that's all right. If I've got wealth, that's all right. If I haven't, that's all right. Even interest enough, even his yogic experience, if it expands, that's all right. If it recedes, that all right. For us, that's a bit like if my meditation's going well, that's all right. If it's not going well, that's all right. So you've got this again and again. And yeah, just the things he's comparing them to, the entourage, like a flock of birds on the tree. In other words, they could just, you think you've got this entourage of, people who are giving you praise, but they just could fly away just like that, and that's fine. Without letting them lead me by the nose. That's good, isn't it? It shows how that just deceives us, if we're attached to that. Relationships like gatherings on a market day. In other words, there's a big crowd and then the market's ended and there's just some, rotten vegetables and everybody's gone home. So, not attaching to it. The yogic experience, not chasing it. Chasing it's like chasing a rainbow. Yeah. So again, you can already see the insight actually that's been expressed in these verses. And then you've got this refrain, may I constantly practice the supreme teaching. In other words, you could say, may I constantly go for refuge to the unlimited ideal of the Dharma. So you've got all these images of all these things that can fly away like birds, that can disperse like crowds on the market day. They can't be held on to. But I think it's very, very interesting, the way to let go of them, the way to let go of being led by the nose by these things is to go for refuge, to constantly practice the supreme teaching. To constantly go for refuge to something that won't fly away, to something that won't scatter. So what does this mean for us? So we're probably not the great yogi yet, but what does this mean for us? So this is what I want to try and talk about and we can discuss in the group. So I think basically the message here is we have to deepen our minds. If we don't want to be sort of led by the nose, if we don't want to just identify with the surface of our minds, we need to deepen our minds. So one way of thinking about this is when we're caught by these worldly winds, pleasure and pain, loss and gain, praise and blame, infamy and fame. Sometimes I think that's like approval and disapproval. When we're caught by that, we've lost perspective. Yeah, we've lost perspective. So we're trying to deepen our minds. In other words, we're trying to get the biggest possible perspective. That would be one way of talking about Buddhist wisdom, that it's the very biggest possible perspective possible. Yeah. So yeah, that's one way of talking about seeing reality. Yeah, it means taking a wider, deeper view of our present experience. What we usually do, well, you can tell me if you agree with this, what we usually do is we take our current experience and we sort of overgeneralize from that. So, like, for example, have you ever had this, that you wake up, say, on Monday morning, and you think, oh my God, I'm really, really tired. And then you immediately think, oh my God, how am I going to get through the week? It's only Monday. Like, I've got this whole week ahead of me. I'm not going to manage. I'm not going to cope or something like that. Has anybody ever had that sort of experience? Yeah, yeah. So that, what we're doing when we do that, and we all do it, is we're overgeneralizing from our current experience, yeah? Or if we've got some pain or something like that, Bhante talks about it, like when we've got a toothache, suddenly you're sort of obsessed by that. You can't see anything else in your experience. Everything just seems like terrible, you know? And you think, oh, if only this would go away, I'd be totally happy. And then it does go away, and you remember to be happy for about half an hour or something, and then you forget, you know. So we overgeneralize like that, or that sort of feeling of that's the last straw. Say you're doing something, quite a difficult task, and you're really struggling with it, and you know, things keep going wrong, and then like one last thing, then you lose your keys, you know, or something. Then you're like, oh, you know, that's it. You know, it's like, that just feels like the final straw, you know. That again, is overgeneralizing. It's like thinking, it's taking that one experience and letting that color everything in its breadth and in its depth. You think that's all that is, yeah? So to the extent that we do that, to the extent that we overgeneralize, we're moving away from reality, yeah? So, you know, reality isn't anything other from our experience. It's not. When we talk in Buddhism about seeing reality, it's easy to think that somewhere there's this reality, and one day if we're really, really good and we practice hard, we'll see it, you know? But actually, it isn't like that. It's not that it's something out there. If we could really have that breadth of perspective and its depth, and not be getting so carried away with the, you know, what's happening in the moment, then, in other words, seeing things as a whole, you know, and really as a whole. Of course, we don't know what the whole is yet, but we can do that to the best we can, see it as a whole. Then that's more like what seeing reality means, yeah? Seeing experience in its totality instead of identifying with this one little bit of it. So if we could do that, if we could not be sort of so obsessed with the specifics, we would start to experience something of that peace. Yeah, we'd be starting to experience something like equanimity. Yeah, it'd be characterized by depth and stability. You know, that'd be that stillness, it'd be that stability of mind. Yeah. So I like this because it sort of brings it down to something we can practice. So, you know, really try that. The next time you wake up on Monday morning and catch yourself in that story of, oh, how am I going to get through the week? It's only Monday. Realize that what you're doing, including myself, I'm talking to myself, is overgeneralizing from the current experience. And practice letting go of that story, you know, because life never works out like that. It's a very two-dimensional way of looking at life, isn't it? You can have that, you know, with bigger experience as well. I always think that around about experiences of death or bereavement. Of course, they're very painful, and they're completely different than we imagine, you know. Like, I remember before my father's death, when I was a, you know, teenager and so on, I used to think, oh, like when my dad dies, I'll never smile again. That will just be like the end of the world, and I'll never smile again, and it will just be terrible. Now, and then he did die. So then you get to that experience, the one you're fearing. And I'm not trying to belittle it in any way at all, actually, because they're very, very painful, those experiences. But actually, I remember noticing this within quite a short time. I did smile, like something like funny happened. And I thought, oh, like like I thought I was never going to smile again, but like I am smiling. And of course, there's often a lot of connection and love round about those times. Not always, of course, but do you see what I mean? It's more three-dimensional. In our imagination, we're thinking this terrible thing's going to happen, I'll never smile again. It's very two-dimensional. And it's all a story, yeah? So the next time you notice yourself telling that story about little or big things, you might just say to yourself, well, this is me overgeneralizing. What I need to do is try and see experience more as a whole. And that is us actually practicing wisdom, yeah, actually practicing it, because wisdom isn't an abstract thing. There's no such thing as wisdom, is there? There's just wise people. And if you think of the wise people that you know, or people you think of that are wise, they're not going around like being drama queens about every little thing, are they? Probably. Do you know what I mean? They're not like, yeah, well, the people I look up to definitely aren't doing that. They're people who live with that greater perspective on life. And you can practice this with things that happen. You can even practice it, and this is a bit harder, but you can even practice it in respect to in the ethical dimension, even with your own faults and failings. It's a bit harder because, you're practicing away and trying to practice the Dharma life, and then you do something unskillful, even something very unskillful, or even sometimes a little bit unskillful. And it's very, very easy to think, well, I'm sure I'm not the only one that does this. Oh, that's it, it's all ruined. Do people get that? They think, oh, it's all, I've ruined it now, like I've disgraced myself, like it's just like everything's, that I've done is all just completely going to ruin. That's not the wisdom perspective. Yes, we have to take responsibility for unskillfulness, but you've somehow got to do that within the perspective of your whole practice. That's the wisdom approach, yeah? So I hope that's like giving you something that you could actually think of, oh yeah, I could practice that. It's almost like a frame of mind. You can get into that frame of mind where you just think, oh, everything's ruined, everything's gone wrong, and now look what's happened, and now I've gone and done this, and so on. But you can also get yourself out of that frame of mind, and you do that by taking this bigger perspective, yeah? So yeah, that might be something you want to talk about in your groups. This is, by the way, everything I'm saying is all from Bhante as ever. If you want to discover more what Bhante says about this overgeneralizing from your current experience, which is a form of reactivity, it's from the Three Jewels seminar. You can get all the Bhante seminars on Free Buddhist Audio if you know about Free Buddhist Audio. Anyway, the Three Jewels seminar, The Nature of Existence, is quite near the beginning, is where he talks about that. And he goes on to say, and this is really important as well. Actually, this is even more important, that what this doesn't mean is limiting your experience, yeah? So you don't guard against being obsessed by your current experience. You don't guard against being a sort of, drama queen type person by sort of eschewing your experience, yeah? You don't guard against this by keeping your experience low key, tempting as it might be, but it's not that either. You need a combination of experiencing yourself and your life fully and having this vision and having this deeper, broader perspective. You need both, yeah? You can't just think, oh yeah, I know what I'll do, I'll just squash everything down. And that's not it, you know. And anyway, it won't work even if you try it. It'll only work in a very short-term sort of way. So you need to have your full experience, but and have the vision as well. So in other words, an enlightened being would recognize pleasure as pleasure and enjoy it, you know. An enlightened being would recognize pleasure as pleasure and enjoy it, but wouldn't be misled by that, wouldn't be misled and thinking it's going to last forever, wouldn't be misled and thinking, oh, this means I'm an amazing person, and so on. So yeah, enlightened being would still recognize and experience pleasure. I think out of all these worldly ones, I think pleasure and pain, I don't know, I was going to say I'd put them as my top two. You could probably argue for any of them being the top two, but in the end, we kind of want pleasure and we don't want pain. But that doesn't mean not enjoying pleasure, yeah? That doesn't mean not enjoying pleasure. It doesn't mean not feeling pain. So enlightened being would enjoy pleasure, but wouldn't be misled by it. And here's a new thing to tell you now, that also an enlightened being would see that there are two kinds of pleasure. So this is I find this a very, very helpful teaching. So there's two kinds of pleasant, painful, neutral feeling, yeah? So that's, if we keep it with pleasure just now, two kinds of pleasure. So there's worldly pleasure, and the Buddhist word for this is samisa, and there's unworldly, which is niramisa. So that can sound a little bit moralistic, the sort of worldly and unworldly. So maybe I want to just fill that out a bit more. So niramisa, this unworldly pleasure, that is basically when we lift it out of the story of ourselves to ourselves, yeah? So nearly all the time, sort of unenlightened, we're telling the story of ourselves to ourselves. We're saying, oh, you know, why does this always happen to me, and so on, often. Or you might have the opposite story of like, you know, I'm fantastic, sort of thing. What was that song? I'm too sexy for my shirt, you know, type of thing. So you're either going to have one, you know, you have a story of yourself to yourself, yeah? Do people recognize that? So every now and then, well, hopefully, you know, more often, we lift it out of that. We sort of positively forget that story. And usually how I experience that is in moments of beauty, when you're just surprised by beauty, you know, when you just step outside and like, there's the moon, and you just for a moment, you forget to be telling yourself that story. Of course, it kind of usually kicks back in again quite quickly, but that you're lifted out of it. Or in communication, and very good communication with someone, you can positively forget that story. Or you know that experience when you find like a really good birthday present for someone and you're just so pleased, you know, you just oh, I found the thing. And just in that, it's a moment of delight, actually. It's moments of delight. You're lifted out of that. We're lifted out of the story of ourselves. We sort of forget to be a me in that limited way, but at the same time, we feel more of ourselves than ever before. It's very enriching, yeah? There's a feeling of being enriched. We feel whole. So this is niramisa, yeah? This is niramisa, wholesome pleasure. It's the wonderful thing about it is it's not addictive, yeah? It doesn't leave you with a hollow feeling of wanting more. It leaves you enriched. It's not addictive. There's no sort of sting in the tail of it. It's not like, you know, it's not like I stayed up too late flicking through my Instagram account. Now I'm exhausted. There's not that sort of slightly hangovery feel to it. So yeah, it leaves you feeling enriched and content. That's its characteristic. As contrasted with samisa, this worldly pleasure, which, well, is the opposite. It is addictive. It's sort of narcotic. You want to repeat it, but it's always diminishing returns. Yeah, it's always diminishing returns. You can never quite, it's never quite as good the second time. Yeah. You're trying to add something to yourself, yeah, and that samisa experience. You're trying to add something to yourself, and it actually never works. Yeah, it never works. You just need more and more and more of it. So there's another thing to practice. Actually, practice. See if you can just notice the distinction between these two kinds of pleasant feeling, yeah? The samisa and the niramisa. Never mind if you don't remember the words, the worldly and the unworldly, but try and remember the experience. Yeah, try and get a feel for the experience. One's completely wholesome and will help you, and the other will just leave you wanting more, the other will just leave you just wanting. You just want more. And then I think this is quite a good way to sort of work with the worldly winds, because it's quite a sort of abundant way. So it's not that you work with the worldly winds, say, of pleasure and pain, by trying to somehow be some detached person that doesn't feel pleasure anymore. It's more you work with it by saying, oh, what's a wholesome kind of pleasure, and how can I increase that in my life, So then it's like that image of one peg knocking out of another, so that that peg knocks out the unwholesome pleasure. You just fill yourself with wholesome pleasure, and then contentment naturally arises. Often on retreat, that's what happens, isn't it? You just become more and more content with, less and less things, actually, that you never thought you could be. So there's two things to practice. So I think I just wanted to finish with a final image. And actually, Medina will recognize this, and some of the others, because it's an image from the retreat we've just been on together on Padmasambhava. And some of you might know the story of Padmasambhava and the king. So Padmasambhava is a historical and mythical being. Yeah, both historical and mythical being. In fact, we're all both historical and mythical beings. And Padmasambhava is a historical mythical being living in the 8th century, and is credited with taking Buddhism to Tibet. Yeah, and there's lots of stories. There's lots of mythical stories surrounding him. So in this story, the king of Tibet, who's actually a good king, he's a good king, and he's the one that wanted Buddhism brought to Tibet. So he's a good king. He wanted Buddhism brought to Tibet. There's this whole story about how that happened, and how, in order to bring Buddhism to Tibet, they had to call for Padmasambhava, who came from India. Then finally, there's a meeting between Padmasambhava and the king. So you can imagine this scene. The king is there with his whole entourage, all his wives, all his courtiers, all the riches of the palace and so on. And Padmasambhava has finally deigned to come and see the king. Padmasambhava's sort of taken his time about it, actually, but he comes to see the king. And then Padmasambhava that comes into the palace, probably looking like, I don't know, a sort of wild shaman, you know, probably he's got all this like hair everywhere, and he's got this big red cloak, and he comes in and they stand before each other, and basically it's a standoff, because who is going to bow to who? Yeah, so the king like definitely thinks Padmasambhava should be bowing to him. Yeah, so the king, good king, wants wants Buddhism in his land, but basically wants Buddhism on his terms. Yeah, he's the king, but he wants Buddhism on his terms. In other words, Buddhism, as represented in Padmasambhava, has to bow to him. Yeah, so you can imagine this is what the king's thinking, like, you know, Padmasambhava's got to bow to me, and you know, what Padmasambhava's thinking is, I'm Padmasambhava, you know, I'm Padmasambhava. So definitely Padmasambhava isn't going to bow to the king. So the king, do you see, the king is completely, all these worldly winds have seduced the king, you know. The king will be feeling, I'm a someone, you know, and the worldly winds will all in this instant be blowing in the king's favor. You know, he's got the wealth, he's got all the you know, he's got all the pleasure, all the gain, all the fame, and all the praise, you know, so far. So he's a somebody, yeah. Who's Padmasambhava? Padmasambhava's gone beyond all that identity. Padmasambhava's, he's not just in the lake, he is the lake. He is the lake. So he definitely doesn't bow, and the king's probably getting a bit nervous by this point, but realizing that Padmasambhava's not going to bow, but the king is definitely not bowing. And then Padmasambhava just points his finger, and he sort of sweeps his finger across the room, across the whole entourage. And as he sweeps his finger, all their clothes are completely burned off. Yeah, and they're all left naked, and they all fall in prostration towards Padmasambhava. And the image is like a sort of scythe mowing down, you know, corn or something. Like, you can just imagine all these by now naked figures falling to the feet of Padmasambhava. And yeah, when I was thinking about this morning, I thought, oh, that's what Dujong Rinpoche is doing. Well, in my imagination, when he's saying, may I constantly practice the supreme teaching, he's not trying to be a someone. Yeah, he's not trying to be a someone. It's like he's stripped naked. He's not attached to all these things, you know, all these things from the verses, you know, happiness, unhappiness, an entourage assembled around him or not, his religious position or not, you know, even his friends, whether they love him or not, whether they approve him or not, he's naked. You see, he's not trying to use those things to clothe himself, to be a someone. He's just allowed that to be all burned off, and then prostrate. Yeah, then prostrate. May I constantly practice the supreme teaching. So there's an image to leave you with. So I hope that gives you some things to talk about in your group. So maybe I'll just recap. Of course, you can talk about anything you like in the group. You might want to talk about the image of Padmasambhava the king, and what are we bowing to? Are we really bowing to the Dharma, or are we like the king that somehow thinks the Dharma should bow to us? In other words, fit into our lives, or can we allow ourselves to sort of nakedly bow to the Dharma? You might want to talk about that. You might want to talk about, well, yeah, what happens when we overgeneralize from our current experience, and can we learn to bring a bigger perspective to that? And can we see that that perspective is actually the wisdom perspective, that reality isn't somewhere else? And can we see in our experience that pleasure is of two kinds, that there's this worldly pleasure that's narcotic and leaves us wanting more. And then there's this unworldly pleasure that lifts us out of the story of ourselves to ourselves. So there's some things that you might want to, well, hopefully that you can actually practice, not just talk about. And you might want to talk about in your groups how you can practice them. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Subhadramati. I love it when you say, I think you say it quite a lot. I love it when you say, remember this and practice it because it will help you. I really love that. Thank you. And when you say it, I think, right, okay. I will. Thank you so much. Let me just give the So the breakout group will be doing their thing for the groups for tonight.